Hi everybody, I'm Philippa. I'm a trainee clinical scientist over in Hull, and I'll talk to you a little bit about what it's been like to reach the third year of the programme, spending just about half of my training time in the midst of the pandemic. You through what may be a difficult winter and maybe a difficult spring, so hopefully sharing something that will be helpful for you all. So I'm a direct entry trainee, so I came in through the national recruitment, which means I'm on a fixed term contract over in Hull. So I actually still live in my home in Manchester at the weekends, and I journey across the M62 all the way over to Hull to do my training. And obviously this was quite convenient when we were still going to Manchester University for face-to-face lessons. But as we've been doing most of the university work online, it's not really had the boon that I was hoping. So I can talk to you a little bit about what it's like to train away from home and the kind of flexible working from home things that I've done to keep my work-life balance in check as well. So coronavirus, it's been difficult, and I'm not going to dwell too much on the difficulties because I think it has opened up a whole set of opportunities, not just for me, for colleagues working in haematology, immunology, respiratory sciences, so HSSTs across the board. It's been a time of benefit for many of us. So this was us in January 2020, and we were the first place to pick up a few of these cases, which really threw us into the spotlight, not just from a health and safety executive investigation perspective, but also from a public health perspective. And this spotlight really pushed all of our other work and all of our other activities into the shadows. You know, we became overnight, very quickly, a one test service almost. And we've had to do a lot of adjustments and adapt a lot of the ways that we work. So a little bit about pandemic planning and the pressures that this brought. So we did have a flurry of activity, which seems to have stabilised at the moment. We've sort of moved away from the cycle of equipment validations and verifications, and we seem to have a consensus around guidance, and the communications are coming a little bit more regularly. But what this has meant for me as a HSST is I've had the opportunity to develop services, lead new initiatives, and I've had the opportunity to work with different teams from different specialities. So what I would say is get stuck in. This is a once in a lifetime chance almost to have 5 years to improve your scientific and clinical skills, to develop your research skills. So just grab the opportunity, be as flexible as you can be brave. I would say be visible, because HSST is a new term and not everybody really knows what we are and what we can do, and be part of your team, but be part of other teams if you feel you can. And this is a chance to have a one file that is really diverse and very unique, because not many other trainees will have the opportunity to be part of a pandemic. Well, we hope. So pandemic processing and what it's meant, I alluded earlier that we became almost like a one sample service and also a one infection service as well. So we did have a disproportionate amount of time and effort into looking for coronavirus and monitoring the spread of coronavirus. And it is fair to say things are normalising now, but there has definitely been some serious drift from my original training plan. Lots of changes in the wider hospital around outpatient clinics and service deliveries. There's been some reduction in surgeries, and there's been a lot of staff redeployed. And without a doubt, my plan and my research has had to be adapted, but there's still been opportunity for me to lead things. So what I would say is think about your training plan as a living document. Don't think that you write it once at the beginning of your journey and that's it. I would say you need to be reviewing it every 3 to 4 months almost season by season, maybe even at shorter intervals as we are under so much pressure still with coronavirus. Have some contingencies. So have things that you would ideally really like to do and get out of the way in your first year, but don't be disappointed if they get bumped to your second year. But at the same time, if at the moment there is research activity going on around viruses and you're a respiratory trainee or you're working in immunology and you would like to see what is happening in other departments, then use this time to go and see them whilst they are still doing this kind of high pressured work. I would definitely advise having winter pressures mapped into your training plan. Think about what would happen if you did end up doing more day-to-day service delivery and you had to drift away from your research plans. It looks very daunting when you start HSST, so I would say look at the big ticket items, look at the research planning and start to break them down. Try and get some quick wins so that you feel as though you are making progress, even if it's not on the track that you originally intended. And what I would say is be prepared to explain what HSST is a lot, because you're going to come into contact with professionals across the NHS that are all doing different kinds of advanced programs, and they are going to know what HSST means and what qualifications you will end up with at the end and how you can potentially fit into what they are doing. So I would really emphasize that at the moment we're in a bit of a post-COVID research boom. There are lots and lots of opportunities to do collaborative research, and there are different funding streams popping up all over the place. So you can really take advantage of the fact that there are going to be long COVID clinics, there are going to be further immunological studies. So start thinking early about what research you could do, but definitely have some backup plans in place. And also, I know it sounds silly to think of this now, but within your training plan, start thinking about what future you will be. So at the end of 5 years, what will consultant level practice look like for you in your specialty? So I'm in year 3, I'm almost at the end of year 3, and during this year my training plan has had a big shift. I've taken on being the principal investigator for the Siren study, which has been run across 2 hospitals on our site. And not only is this a great opportunity for me, it's been a fabulous way for me to explain what HSSTs can do and how we can be integrated and involved. And it is preparing me for consultant level practice. You will see when you start to look through the one file, a lot of your evidence and competencies start with leading. So you must show that you are leading and capable of leading. And really, I think this point for me, so I'm just past halfway, that tip has started, and I am now starting to lead services and develop services. I would encourage you all to find your friends. So set up your WhatsApp groups, set up some online learning, learn from peers, especially people outside of your bubble. So if you're in physiological sciences, don't be afraid to connect in with the life scientists and see if there's anything you can do together. You're on slightly different paths, but still you can support each other through the A modules at university, and you can definitely get better perspectives by knowing what other HSSTs do in their day job. And don't be afraid to seek support as well, because this is a challenging programme. There is a lot to cram in. The university are very understanding that we have day jobs to do, and that sometimes things don't go to plan in our day jobs, and sometimes we don't quite have control over changes to our services. So keep people up to date. There are options to defer if things get too much. You can take little sabbaticals from the research section and from the A modules. There is always virtual HSST support through your peers, but remember that if your peers are in a slightly different position to you and they seem to have everything going swimmingly, you know, this is an individual course. You have got to run your own race. It's no good speeding ahead at the race of somebody else, because their working environment could be completely different to yours, and it doesn't help anybody to compare yourself constantly to everybody else. So take the support, but be mindful that you are still doing this against your training plan at a pace that's agreed with your mentors. And the other thing I would advise is that this is a course of 3 parts: Section A, Section B, and Section C. And you may need different people mentoring you for each of those sections. So don't be afraid to link into mentor support groups that exist in your trust to help you through the managerial section that you'll cover at the university. And don't be afraid to go outside of your own department and find peer support from business managers across the trust. Build your own network, and build a network that suits you and that you're comfortable with. So to emphasize that, you know, change, it isn't always what you're giving up. Change can bring challenge, and it can test you and make you grow as a person very quickly. But there are always gains. It's just finding those gains. So it is strange times. This is unusual. It still doesn't quite feel as though we are back to normal yet, especially for us in infection services. But I think the past 6 months, there's been a real change in HSSTs and how we're viewed and what we can add to services across the trust.